For this list, I would like to look at 12 really bad business decisions. Business is hard, and so to be fair, I won't second guess people for failing to invent, say, Facebook, or magically inventing the internet in the 1970s, or knowing that a pool of oil lie under Saudi Arabia. Instead, I will analyze 12 executions of business that were utterly incompetent. Number 1, Blockbuster. In 2000, Blockbuster was offered a controlling interest in Netflix, which it turned down, for less money than it was going to be spending launching Blockbuster Portugal. As Netflix and HBO caught fire, Blockbuster did nothing to rectify its mistake or to catch up, and instead tried to sue the US government to shut down video streaming on the internet as copyright infringement. In 2010, Blockbuster went belly up. I know because I bought 20 DVDs at their seizure auction. Number 2, Kmart's defeat. The 1990s product war between Kmart and Walmart wasn't fair. Kmart had more stores and much more free cash. Kmart tried to silence Walmart via a massive ad campaign that stressed the superiority of Kmart products. Walmart took its money and invested in cheaper products, expanding inventory, and a faster checkout speed. Walmart totally crushed Kmart. Apparently, Kmart missed the fact that discount shoppers at big box stores want cheap products quickly and not much else. Number 3, Soviet quotas. Companies existed in the USSR. They were simply more controlled and state-run. In the USSR, the Soviet oligarchs put nearly every Russian company on a strict quota system. Quotas were almost arbitrarily decided based on mathematical algorithms or what officials thought was capable. The result was that Soviet companies either had way too much to do or way too little. In the former case, production standards diminished as Soviet workers rushed to complete any product. In the latter case, the result was millions of workers literally sitting around playing cards for 4 hours a day because they had nothing to do. The quota system was one of the factors in the collapse of the Soviet Union. Number 4, Fox sells Star Wars. When the Star Wars movies were released, 20th Century Fox owned all merchandising rights for toys and games. Instead of using them, Fox sold these rights to George Lucas for $20,000, who promptly made billions off the toys, games, and other Star Wars products. The odd thing was that Fox did this at a time when toys were still widely used by children. Since then, nearly every movie studio is obsessed with retaining merchandising rights. Number 5, nearly everything the East India Company did, 1700 to 1874, its collapse. The British East India Company is probably one of the most famous companies and most famously misunderstood companies of all time. This is odd, as the BEIC was one of the worst run companies of all time. The BEIC rose to dominance due to its political connections, brutality, and ability to get no-bid contracts or monopolies at vastly discounted rates. But the BEIC was horribly run. It was perpetually nepotistic and awarded important leadership positions on family heritage as opposed to merit. Or simply awarded contracts and management positions to people who were literally just popular at British social clubs. The BEIC also kept poor inventories, allowed massive leakages, paid pointless bribes, and caused revolutions in India, Australia, America, and Siam. It was repeatedly bailed out by the British government, and that's the only reason that it lasted so long. Microsoft ignores the free internet. Microsoft made its mark by embracing the idea of open source. The entire concept of Windows was an understanding that you could never bring the average consumer up to the level of a DOS-based computer, but that you could indeed bring computers down to people through software that most everyone could use and understand. Windows crushed the competition with this idea, inflating Microsoft's share value 47,000% from 1987 to 1999. In 2001, new leaders at Microsoft concluded that Microsoft needed to become more like IBM. Bill Gates backed this idea, as Bill Gates strongly felt, at this stage, much different to his earlier self, that all content needed to be owned by somebody. So, Microsoft proceeded with less free content and no investment in mobile technology. The market pushed back. Microsoft's share price stagnated from 2000 to 2012, and trillions were lost to competitors like Google, Wikipedia, iTunes, and so forth that didn't even really exist in 1999. Number 7, 1980s Japanese banks. From 1979 to 1989, Japan's major banks ruled Asian finance, making use of ample lending, subprime lending, some creative financial accounting, and risky real estate investments. Japan's banks were able to dominate finance, and they were the toast of the world. From 1982 onward, these banks tried to literally corner the U.S. business property market. But amidst the sake and the Japanese, no one thought that cornering a market in a country 10 times your own size with collateral-free loans was a bridge too far. In 1991, the bubble burst, with most major Japanese banks collapsing or requiring a bailout. The crash was so bad, bankers were committing ritual suicide, and Japan entered a lost decade of low economic growth and stagnant family creation. Number 8, interbanks black box. Every now and then, investors get the bright idea to create a new banking center in a country like Dubai, where regulations are light and labor laws non-existent. Supposedly, these new banking centers will surpass the flawed banking centers of New York or Paris or London. One of the first attempts at this was Interbank, a Palestinian-owned bank in Lebanon that was designed to wrest control of Middle Eastern banking away from Westerners. The no questions, no transparency bank. From 1960 to 1966, the bank received a majority of deposits from oil proceeds from all of the Gulf states. Interbank had also totally oblique finances, something that encouraged sketchy investment but also led to its doom. In 1966, rivals leaked information that Interbank was in trouble. It wasn't, but with no financial transparency, Interbank could not fight the rumors. A bank run ensued, and the bank collapsed in less than a month. It took with it the entire Lebanese economy, as Lebanon's rulers had foolishly allowed Interbank to put its fingers in every aspect of Lebanon's economy. Numbers 9 through 12. Subprimes and CDOs. No list on stupid business decisions would be complete without a discussion of the 2008 financial collapse. The 2008 collapse was a result of 4 things: unwise loans at unsustainable interest rates, the packaging of those mortgages into securities that Wall Street could buy and sell, insurance on those financial products, and finally, overexposure and overleverage. The 2008 financial collapse is really poorly understood, partly because it's so complicated, partly because the dialogue has been hijacked, and partly because economics is poorly taught in the West. So I will boil it down. Basically, the root cause of 2008 collapse was too many people were given too large of loans to buy homes that were unaffordable based on the buyer's income. Worse still, the interest rates on these subprime mortgages were set to ratchet up over time, so go up over time. Some were so bad that they were negative amortizing, which means payers would only ever be paying interest and never actually principal, so theoretically they'd be hawked to the bank for the rest of their life. Now, normally mortgages just sit in a bank vault somewhere, but in the 2000s, banks got the bright idea to sell these mortgages to other companies that did little more than service the mortgages, aka collect the premiums. Then, and here it gets complicated, those mortgage companies packaged or put together those mortgages into a financial product like a stock or a bond or an ETF that was sold to Wall Street investors. Seeking security, those investors then bought insurance policies on those mortgage-backed assets. So basically, one house that normally would support one financial product, a mortgage, was suddenly supporting 4 or more products, exposing 4 or more companies and 4 or more investors. A little risk is okay, but the overwhelming problem in 2008 was that companies overexposed themselves in the extreme. In search of quick bonuses and ever-expanding profits, companies took on huge numbers of bad mortgages, underwrote scores of products, and did it mostly with money borrowed from conservative banks. Companies like Ambac Financial or Countrywide took on mortgages that equated 70 or 80% of the company's overall assets. Lehman had leveraged themselves 44 to 1, borrowing 44 times more money than they had on hand to trade with, just like you or I could do. It was a Jenga tower ripe for collapse. From 2007 to 2009 in America and 2010 to 2012 in Europe, the bubble burst at an unprecedented speed, and a huge amount of wealth was destroyed. There is enough blame to go around here. Much blame goes to the corporations that allowed short-term profit motives to trump wiser decisions that would literally have saved the company in question. More blame goes to lax regulation and poor laws that allowed 44 to 1 leverage and totally unregulated financial products, specifically the CDOs or the insurance. Other blame can go to people who took on loans they could not pay back. But in the end, most blame goes to poor financial literacy. Few understood what was going on, including the people who sold the products or regulated the products being sold. So few people could reform or raise the alarm that a massive bubble blew up and burst. It's probably this last point that requires the most action, and agents should do their best to learn about economics and finance, specifically if they are regarding the mortgage industry, which is the largest debt industry in the world. Thank you. This has been 12 Really Bad Financial Decisions. Stay tuned next time for 12 decisive military inventions that were ignored.